Hey, how you doing everybody? Welcome back to Big Frog's 4x4. Today I'm going to teach you how to put shifter cables in a 2009 Chevy Cobalt 4-cylinder 5-speed, the non-turbocharged. Alright, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you disconnect the negative battery terminal. Now in the Cobalt, the negative battery terminal and the battery is in the trunk of the car underneath your back cover. It's going to take a 10mm socket and ratchet. To remove that, you loosen it and you wiggle the cable off, and make sure you have that tucked out of the way so it doesn't fall back down and come back in contact with the battery. It's also a good idea to keep a small ratchet set in your car in the trunk. It doesn't take up much room. They're not that expensive. You can pick up cheap ones at, say, Walmart or something. And make sure this has a small set of standard and metrics. Most cars today use a lot of metrics. And just kind of keep that in your trunk of your car, because you never know where you're going to need something like that to, say, change a headlight bulb or disconnect or connect and replace your battery. Alright, you got to remove the whole center console, obviously, to get into the shifter cables that are underneath it. The first thing you want to do is pop the shifter boot out. Get a small screwdriver, or a trim tool, or a pick. Careful not to rip your boot for your shifter. And just carefully pop that shifter boot out, right like that. Alright, next you want to get this rear cup holder assembly out. This car does not have the armrest up through the middle. Makes it a little bit easier. Basically just pull up on our console and the cup holder here. It pops right out, it snaps. Also, the cup holder comes up fairly easy. You want to reach at the top, pull forward, unclip it, and it lifts right out. Now you can get in down there, you see where your shift cables are. Next, you have to pop off both of these side covers. And they're just held on with snaps. You might need a large screwdriver or something to kind of get in behind there. Kind of pop them loose. These snaps are pretty tight. And then at the top of this, there's little like J-hooks that hook into the plastic. You have to be careful not to pop at the top. Pull from the bottom, pop both of these side ones out and the bottom one, and then pull out and then down. That way you don't break these tabs off. Do that on both sides. Alright, next you need to remove these 4 screws on the driver's side. Once you have those screws out, then you can take this plastic panel out of the way. Now, you see where the shifter cables come through the back of the vents there. Next you're going to pull the e-brake all the way up, and this panel snaps in place, and you just pull up from the rear and kind of work it way off of the e-brake cable. Ew. The center console is held in with 2 screws. You can see one right there, and it's on the outside over here. And there's one on the driver's side as well, right there. You just gotta move the seats forward, and the screws are easy to get out. To remove the upper shifter panel, it snaps in as well. So you just reach underneath, kind of pop it out. And there's a plug up here at the front. You have to get your hand in and unplug. To unplug the cigarette lighter, this power port, you squeeze right here on both sides. Try and do it with one hand. So we hold the camera. And that's it, just unplugs. And you come to the other one that's up by the emergency brake cable and do the same thing. Just squeeze, you'll hear it on clip, and pull it out. And set that panel aside. There's one more screw here by the shifter on each side. If I can get in there. On each side there. Alright, that's all the screws to hold that in place. So you just lift the whole center console up and out. By the way, now would probably be a good time to clean all this dirt that falls down into the cracks and crevices you don't see normally. Now you can get in. Now make sure when you do this, transmission must be in neutral at this point now. If you're driving the supercharged 4-cylinder engine, 5-speed, it says to be in the 4th gear. But this is the standard 5-speed, 2.2 liters, so neutral. You have to have it in neutral to replace these cables. Alright, the next thing you want to do is come underneath the car. And your shift cables have one retaining nut right here. It's 10 millimeter. You'll back that off and get your shift cable out of the way. I'd recommend putting your nut back on there, a few threads, and that way you don't forget where you put it and you can't lose it. Alright, now it's time for under the hood. Before you do this, I highly recommend take a vacuum and vacuum any dirt or anything that might be in here. Because when you're going to pull this cover off without your fill cap in, all that dirt's going to fall down on top of your engine. And you're going to have a heck of a time getting it out. So vacuum all this off. Pull your oil fill cap off. And that just pops off. And there's tabs here. And a tab over here that it pops back onto then. And then to make sure nothing falls in your engine, put your oil fill cap back on. Alright. I'm trying my best to get the camera down there so you can see what's going on. Down in here are both of your shift cable ends. There you can see that's the one that's bad. The bushing went bad in it. And then here's your other one. You need to pop both of those off. That one's just going to come right off, so it'll be easy. And there's a ball that they sit on. If I can get down in there to see that or not. But underneath here, there's a ball they sit on, and they have to pop onto those. So what you want to do is come in with the small pry bar, put underneath this arm, and pop it right off of the small pry bar. And there you can see the round ball that these rock and move around on as you shift gears. Alright, unfortunately, there was no way for me to get the camera down in there to show you what I had to do. But you're supposed to be able to pull the tabs back on the shift cable and release it from the holding bracket. Here is the bracket. And it sits down in there about like that, and your cable is locked down in there on these little lock tabs. If I can get it, here, I'll lay it down. It locks on these little rings down here at the bottom, and you're supposed to pull the levers back and then slide them out. Well, I guess because of the dirt and the age, mine would not pull back. I could not get those things to pull back. Even prying them with a pry bar, they would not slide back. So I had to pull the entire bracket out of the vehicle, which is not easy if you don't have, see if the camera will focus, one of these inverted Torx, E-Torx sockets. Now, if you're very careful, you can use a 12.13 millimeter or a 12.10 millimeter socket, slide it over top, and very carefully turn it. You can see it jumped a few times. I actually have one of these sockets, but not here at the home garage. So I had to make do with a 12.13 millimeter. Slowly turned it off and then removed the whole bracket. pulled the bracket down through into the wheel well of the car, where I was able to get a little bit more of a pry on it with a pry bar, and I actually ended up having to cut this one, the lock tab, the lock slide piece off. I'll grab the cable so I can show you. Here's a new set of cables. These slide. And you slide it down over the brackets, you let go, and it locks one of those metal tabs at the bottom of the bracket. This thing would not slide on the other one. No matter what I did, I tried pushing, pulling, twisting, it would not slide back. I guess there was too much dirt stuck in there. So I ended up having to take a cutoff wheel and cut one side, and cut the other side, and then was able to split it in half and then slide it out. So on a scale level of 1 to 10, I'd put this at 9 as being a difficult job, only because most likely if these are wore out, you're going to have a lot of miles in the car, and you might not be able to get these to slide back to release. You might have to remove this bracket, or try breaking these to get them undone. But you don't want to go prying too far hard, because this is aluminum, and you don't want to bend this bracket. And if you do, then these aren't going to lock in correctly, or it may put your shifter in the wrong position, and your transmission may not fully engage one way or the other properly. So if you don't have the ability to get this bracket off and possibly forcefully get these to slide back or break or cut them in some way, you're going to want to take it to another mechanic. I think that's the first time I ever said about doing a job that you might have to take it to a mechanic. That way they have the tools to get these apart if necessary. In theory, if you live in a good clean climate, if your car is clean, which obviously this one's back a dirt driveway all the time, and it's very dirty, if it gets gummed up and you can't slide these back, you're going to run into trouble. If you look at these and they're still clean and you can slide these back, I would probably even do these first and just check to make sure before you start this job if you can slide these back and release them from their brackets up underneath the hood. Now this is probably going to be another job that's not going to be real easy, because all the way back in there, get the light to shine in there, is the rubber grommet that goes through the floor, and you have to get to pull this cables up through, which probably wouldn't be too hard, but then you have to fish the new cables down through there, and then get your rubber grommet to seat so that it doesn't leak water all over the floor. Let's see how we make out with pulling these cables out. I think the grommet pulled through, but now the cables are stuck somewhere. If you have a second person to probably help you underneath the car while you do this, it might be a lot easier. Let's get the light in there. Yep, they're stuck somewhere. Now I'm going to have to climb back out, because it's only me, and try to figure out what's stuck and try to fish these up through.